Ngowi TV, informed economists and business perspective.
So I think basically it has been a good report, and it's not the first time that I'm here with my students, some of my students. And I think what has been said here, although it applies to Africa, is very relevant really to Tanzania. The question of growth has been quite a question of discussion here in Tanzania. And of course, key issue has been the economy has been growing, but really we should look beyond just growth. We want growth that will produce jobs, growth that will be producing, that will be poverty reducing, but also growth that is, of course, friendly to the environment, and growth that really that is green, to put it that way. But also, in the broader context, we have seen growth that is being caused by consumption, and we really don't go into issues because we have seen growth that is caused by consumption of imported goods and services, which is not so good really in context. If there is more local content in the growth, I think it will be good. And of course, as we have said, the China factor, and I thought that debate will be bigger here. We have seen really the question of China when it comes to infrastructure. And of course, now the controversies around debt, that African countries, Zambia in particular, Djibouti and some other countries, maybe also Tanzania, maybe they are they are indebted too much to China. But I think the key issue is, as China is also driving the growth in Africa, Africa should also think on, what is it getting from China? Because I think China has, has the China-Africa policy. Now, the question that I've been asking in some in my writing is on whether Africa has its Africa-China policy, which is not the case, because I think China-Africa is too much disintegrated. The last one, of course, because there are so many young men and women here who seem to be students, and I understand some of them are my students. There's this question of productivity, human capital productivity, which is low. And I would agree, but I think, to increase productivity is a function of investment. Investment in education, investment in health is very important for human capital productivity. And of course, this will be the message to the authorities. If you don't invest to the young men and women, then really productivity will keep on being low. And I think that's not really what we want.
What we have seen here, in fact, underscores what we have believed here in Tanzania is the solution, together with the government, and that is the need to raise productivity and strengthen domestic industries and create opportunities for young people so that those who invest in human capital and skills and so on can be properly deployed in most productive ways to help this society. So the structural transformation that is the core of the strategy of the World Bank in Tanzania is in fact the underlying force behind the 5-year development plan and the industrialization program. So yes, it's taken a long time, partly because of the preoccupation of institutions in government as they transition from administration to administration and so on. But in fact, we are getting back on the right road with renewed commitment to supporting industrialization efforts, also the skills for development education system in this country. So things take a little bit longer than they should, but nevertheless we're all on the same road. And as you can see, the issues of Tanzania, the problems with productivity and growth are not unique to Tanzania. They are in fact pervasive throughout Africa. We're lucky in the sense that we don't have the same curse as some other countries do of overdependence on any one resource. In fact, this country has abundant resources in many, many areas. They are being underutilized right now, but I think that holds a lot of promise for the future of this country to prosper and to once again be a leader among the nations of Africa.
Yes, there is this misallocation of talents, something which is very, currently in Tanzania is according to me, that it is you take a professor from a university and then you send him to somewhere which has been criticized. What is your comment?
Well, so the misallocation of resources is, well, you point out one example where someone who was skilled and educated for one thing but is deployed in another area where he cannot be as productive as what he was trained to do. That's one example, but that's a small example. But let's talk about millions of people. Let's talk about millions of people. And and their abilities to contribute to high productivity in the economy, where do they spend their entire lives working, and how they deploy all of their efforts? What is the yield from that? Lots of educated young people need industries in which, or their own professional vocations where they can actually add a lot of value and create a lot of wealth. The question is, are those opportunities easily available to them or not? And are there any support programs to make such talented, educated people to actually achieve everything that they are capable of doing? Or will they end up going back to the same place where they maybe grew up and do farming or some lower level, some lower productivity, let's say, activity for which they were overqualified? But you also have high productivity opportunities in agriculture and farming that are being wasted, and which no one is pursuing. And there's actually more need for more support in those areas too. The ability to increase productivity in agriculture in this country is being overlooked. But also it will take some time to create a fully, let's say, a skilled workforce on a big scale. It takes time, it takes generations to acquire the kind of the skills to be able to create opportunities, not only to take advantage of them, but to create new opportunities for higher value added employment. But I think what the report points out too, that the reason for some of that misallocation is that there are incentives in the system, in our society, which actually discourage the highly productive people from finding those opportunities or able to prosper from them. That less qualified people may be closer to those opportunities than those who are highly qualified, and those who are highly qualified and capable people are unable to get into the position, so they end up in positions where they are not so qualified for. You know, we are all highly qualified in something and poorly qualified in other things, all of us. It's just a difference in what, right? There are so many things any of us who have good education are totally incompetent at doing. We shouldn't even be touching those things. There are other people who don't need that kind of education and whatever, and they know it like experts, and that's where they're really highly productive, and that's what they should be doing. It's the complementarity of the two. Everybody is matched properly where he should. That brings the overall average productivity up. Yeah, so we must work on what are those obstacles and the wrong incentives in the system. Are they related to like corruption, as we call it, or fixing patronage, or people basically interfering with how the market works, but for various reasons changing the way that society should actually develop for personal gain or for narrow interests. That's a tough call. I don't know. In some spots you can spot it. How did so-and-so get into this position? You never know. Okay, but that's one example. But what we're talking here about millions of people finding their own place to help contribute and develop society and themselves. We must create those opportunities and find out what's holding us back.
Thank you. I think we shall stop there for now. I'm going to stay away from restaurants in terms of the skills set that I have. So, asanteni tena jamani. All of you, we have End Poverty Day.